This
Recording?
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. 2:00 meeting of Finance Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Korn,
Here,
Vice Chair Foster, Counselor Hildebrand,
Present.
Counselor Perry,
so we don't have a
we
quorum.
don't have a quorum.
Okay. Well, that was quick.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, there you come.
There he is.
Well, we have to fix the call the meeting.
I'm taking roll. Counselor Perry?
Here.
Okay, so we've
Thank
got
goodness you
this.
showed up. Robert was ready to leave.
Well, I want to know what Bob had to say about me while I was here. I'm kidding.
Will you hush? You said you were going to behave today.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, those roads are crazy today. There are a lot of people out there right now, so should have left the house earlier.
Yeah, well, that's all right. We appreciate you joining us. Okay, I need a motion for the approval of the agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda for the Finance Committee Thursday, July 6, 2023.
Second.
And I got a second. Any opposition to approving the agenda? Hearing none, passes 3-0. Okay, we're gonna move right into action items. We've got the Roswell Museum floor replacement contract with Wade Construction.
Excuse me, Chairman, can we have a approval of the minutes?
The
agenda has-
Yeah, but that's way back.
It's
Sorry.
It's way down under E.
You put in,
Are you quite through, Madam Clerk?
I have it on D.
no,
I have a,
but you have the wrong agenda. That's an old agenda. It's been up.
you have a new one?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is the same one.
Oh, the scribe doesn't have it.
Oh, that's.
Have the correct
I didn't get the new agenda, sorry.
Okay.
agenda.
Okay, pardon me. I didn't get the new one. Yeah.
All right, so let's,
Pardon me.
can we get started now? Everybody reasonably happy? Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair and Councilors. I have before you consideration of ITZ 23-025 Roswell Museum flooring replacement. The City of Roswell received 2 bids and we're recommending award to Wade Construction, which was the apparent low bidder. The bid amount came in at $566,899, inclusive of $50,000 contingency. If all the contingency was spent and taxes included, the total amount would be $610,597.28. We have $600,000 allocated for the project. And we do have some state allocations that can fulfill any additions of up to $600,000 with the taxes. And I stand for questions.
Any questions?
The contingency is a large number.
Huh?
That contingency number is a large number, but it won't get utilized unless they present billings against it. Be fine.
Okay.
And the GRT should be, is just a new, that's not the new GRT number, so.
Oh, it may not be. It was calculated,
The GRT went down.
did it go up?
It went down?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
Well, that's good.
yeah,
Because that's,
about a quarter.
I can't remember. I looked at it, but I can't remember exactly what the number is. But it is.
Okay.
So, but that's all calculated after the fact. It's real anyway. Okay, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send a full council approval of awarding bid for ITB -23-025 for the Roswell Museum flooring to Wade Construction.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody opposed? Hearing none, passes 3-0.
thank you.
The award for We're gonna skip down to item number 5. Okay, you're up.
Okay, this is our RFP for the credit check services. We got 2 proposals that were received on June 13th. Review committee, project manager, and our purchasing lady sat down and, I'm gonna call you something. We sat down, went through the bids. We are recommending online information services for this service.
With your all's permission, can we go ahead and cover item 3 also, or related?
You just want to go on to the next one too?
Yeah.
Okay. This one is for debt collection services. We received 2 proposals for this one on the same date, and the review committee, we went through everything, and we again recommend online information services. The biggest reason for going with this company is they can integrate directly into Tyler.
Questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
we currently are using a vendor, are we not, for your item? Tell me about why you really chose credit check services and what's the cost involved with them? Do we know what the cost involved is?
We do, but we can't discuss it.
So those are proposals, everything's kept confidential until an award is issued. But for the counselor's sake and making a good decision, I can share any of the proposal documents with you. Just have to go sign a confidentiality agreement and we can review from there.
Well, and that's for a credit check service. The company they're wanting to use is Online Information Services.
Yeah, it's the same company for
Right, same company for both.
Yes.
Just curious what the cost is.
It was less than what I thought it would be.
Well, and it gets passed on
Yes,
to whoever.
It's passed through?
yes, it gets passed on to the customer.
That's right here, so. Financial consideration. Passed on.
Any other item, it's going to be a percentage collected.
That's what the debt collection one is, the percentage of what they collect.
Curious to see what that is.
Yeah, we can set something up. I can send an email out to all the counselors. That way everyone's on the same page and I'll be more than available.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Anything to add there, Counselor?
What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we send to full council recommendation to award RFP 23-015, the credit check services, and authorization for the city manager to enter into the contract with Online Information Services.
Second.
Got a motion and a second on item 2. Any objections? Hearing none, passes 3-0.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve, that we send to full council, recommendation to approve the award of RFP 23-016, the debt collection services and authorization for the city manager to enter into a contract with Online Information Services.
Got a motion and a second on item 3, dealing with debt collection services. Any further comments, gentlemen? Hearing none, those opposed signify by saying aye. Passes 3-0. Okay. Surplus property.
That's some stuff I need to get rid of. It's looking like a used car lot over there, so we need to start moving some stuff out.
We haven't had one of these reports in a while because we've been doing a good job of keeping up with it.
Okay.
I'm trying to be nice.
My desk is kind of piled up with it, but
Well, there's other stuff on the deck.
Yeah.
That's right.
yeah, this is most of the vehicles that are parked over there. We've been kind of collecting them until the market's gotten a little better for them.
Quite a list here. Questions, gentlemen?
Yeah, I do have a question. Tell me what's your minimum price and auction reserve, where are those? The auction reserve is 5,200 on my Suburban, and then you got a minimum.
Okay, so what the auction reserve is, that is the minimum price that we will go for. We won't go anywhere underneath that.
Under the auction reserve.
Sell it on the auction reserve.
Okay,
The minimum price, that's the price that I set it at. That's usually half the price of the auction reserve. That way you can get the interest and then it builds up. It's weird how you do it, but it works.
okay. So what it will sell for is at least what the auction reserve is.
Yes, that's the minimum that we'll accept.
And how did you come to a estimated value? The item you're calling scrap, this is 2014 International at Enfield. You're saying it's estimated 76,000?
That one was actually, they're parting it out, is what they're doing with that one. So it's not going to be scrap, like we're going to haul it off to the scrap yard, but they're taking it and scavenging parts off of it. But we have to take it out of the inventory.
Gotcha.
That way we don't have, as long as we get it out of the inventory, then we don't have to insure it and do all that other stuff.
Right, gotcha. Thank you.
Question? What's your pleasure?
There's a couple of fire trucks there that would make really nice planters in somebody's front yard.
When's the auction? Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I move that we approve resolution 23 authorizing disposal of certain surplus property on the consent agenda.
Second.
got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in the negative indicate by saying aye. Passes 3-0. Large diameter emergency pipe. I wonder who's got that one.
Mr. Chair, committee members, here asking you to consider approval to ratify the large diameter emergency water line repair work to White Cloud Pipeline Corp. for water line repairs at 2940 West 2nd Street in the amount of $60,246.64, which does include GRT. So background, the city has a large diameter water line break on a 20-inch transmission line at the same address. A large diameter water line repair work was awarded to White Cloud Pipeline utilizing RFP 22-006, which is the on-call utility repair services. And this is specialized repair work on concrete cylinder, which requires an excavator, shoring equipment, the welding of steel reinforcement bands. White Cloud Pipeline was selected to perform the repair work due to them providing the lowest quote to perform the repair. And this is coming out of the regular operating budget, which didn't require any budget adjustment. That I stand for any questions. Just so you know, this one is going to get started on Monday. That's why I brought it to ratify. It hasn't started yet, but they're going to start Monday. They'll probably be done by the time council comes.
Okay, good.
That's why we put it to ratify.
No questions by me.
Questions, Councilor Perry? What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, move that we ratify the large diameter emergency water line repair work to White Cloud repairs at 2940 West 2nd in the amount of $60,246.64.
Second.
Have a motion, a second.
We put that on the consent.
Yes, please.
Consent agenda.
Good. So any objection?
No, sir.
Hearing none, passes 3-0. Edgewood Water Line Project, next.
Here ask you to recommend, here recommending ratification of change order 1 final for ITB 22-007 Edgewood Waterline Phase 2 in the amount of $65,253.37 plus $5,029.93 gross receipts tax for a total monetary amount of $70,283.30. Little background, the Edgewood Waterline Phase 2 project was funded by the Water Trust Board. This water line work is Water Trust Board project number 5434 WPF, which is an agreement with the city of Roswell. Agreement for a total amount of $750,000, 40% loan of $300,000, and 60% grant, which was $450,000. The loan portion is a 20-year loan at 0.25% interest. And the New Mexico Finance Authority is a financial agent for this project. And also this change order was also, we pulled money from our other PO that we've been pulling money off of in order to fund it. One where we had remaining funding in. So it did come out of regular fiscal year's budget. With that, I stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if I can just say items 5, item 6, item 7, no, I'm sorry. I have a massive headache, so I'm struggling with some of this, but 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, if I'm not mistaken, have all already been heard through infrastructure. Correct. And we've already sent an approval to send to full council. I don't know. To consent, correct.
That's what time you already.
We're sort of doubling up here, so, but I don't mind, but it's going to full council. So if we want.
On consent.
Yeah, on consent. But if we want to hear these just as information, whatever.
Yeah, which is not on here that it's been already heard.
We,
I'm fine with it. It just, on the abstract, it just doesn't say that.
we can start including that on there.
Yeah.
It just,
I get what
because it has a financial
right.
impact on the city's budget, then that's why we bring it to board.
And I think it's important, regardless of what other committee does it, that it comes to finance, because we're the keeper of the dollars. And we gotta know what's going on.
And I don't have a problem with that. All I'm just saying is we're doubling up on our motions here. If we recommend it doesn't go forward, it's still gone forward. Is what I'm saying. Just clarification.
Councilor Perry, do we put it as a non-action item since one committee heard it and just bring it as informational?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm just making.
I'm asking the question, that way I can bring it however you guys want. I want to do whatever you guys.
I think whatever the chair wants to do.
We'll talk about that. Okay.
I'm okay with you bringing it here. Just put on there, the infrastructure's approved it. Go ahead and bring it here if you want.
Right here as an action item still. So we can put, because then we can put it as, send it to full council if you want to pull it off of consent, something like that. Okay.
That's what I feel. I'm not talking for you, Mr. Chairman.
No, I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. We'll make sure it's cited on the abstract moving forward.
Okay. Anything further on this item?
No.
Now, I'm going to make a statement, and somebody can tell me if I'm right or wrong. All these gross receipts that we're looking at are on the old rate.
That is correct. All the recommendations that you saw through infrastructure were based on the receipts rate of 7.7083, and you rated 7.5833. So unless the PO has already been requested, the old rate, we're going to request the new rate. Probably the award number that you're approving now will be lower.
Right.
That's your question, barely.
Oh, that's exactly, wasn't really a question, that clarified it. So what did you say the old rate was?
7.7083,
And what's the new?
7.5833.
Okay. Due as of July 1st.
Correct.
I noted it. We'll actually get some money back on all of these.
Well,
we just won't get
we might all balance out. If there's any growth changes, the council is proposing. So
Well, they won't go into effect until January.
Mr. Chairman, we won't get money back based upon when we bill Mark at the higher rate. That's what that's
the
all.
way it works with the construction projects, when we pay the bill, we pay that applicable tax
At the time we pay.
rate.
That's the way grocery receipts supposed to work. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I move that, did you guys put on the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
I move that we ratify the change order for ITB 22-007 for the Edgewood Waterline phase, the amount of $65,000, amount of $70,283.30, and be placed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further comments? Any opposition? Passes 3-0. Still up?
Here we go.
Go.
Mr. Chair, committee members, once again. Here asking you, recommending resolution 23XX in support of funding the Country Club Rehabilitation Project to the Nesco Finance Authority Water Project Funding, Project WPF 5980, with a total monetary agreement amount of $8 million. The background, the city was approved funding in the amount of $8 million for Water Trust Board Project number WPF 5980, Water Conveyance and Delivery Project, Country Club Reservoir Rehabilitation Project to the Mesco Finance Authority. The approved funding structure consists of a 55% loan, an amount of $4.4 million, which include an additional loan in lieu of match, and a 45% grant in the amount of $3.6 million. The loan component is 20-year term at a net effective rate of 0.25%, 0% interest rate with the administrative fee component of 1/4%. The loan and grant are to be used by the city of Roswell for design and construct, rehabilitate 2 7.5 million gallon reservoirs. With that, I stand for any questions.
So what was the loan amount again?
$8 million.
No,
No, the
Oh, the
loan.
loan. 4.4. Grant was 3.6.
And how you feel comfortable that we have sufficient movement in
talking
our
to
budget? I'm talking
Finance director. Oh,
talking
me?
to you,
Well,
that we have sufficient cash flow to service this loan?
I believe we do moving forward, as long as we're working on our rate study right now. And we can,
So you're betting on a possible pay off down the road?
so my thing, in my opinion, Janie, tell me if I'm wrong, but if we could pull funding, if we had to, from the wastewater fund to the water side in order to cover it while we're working on trying to get the rate study implemented moving forward.
Isn't part of this loan agreement that we have sufficient
It is.
sufficient revenue to cover the loan?
It is.
And right now, today, it's your opinion that we probably don't. Janie's opinion anyway. What's your opinion?
Well, I'm there without a rate increase. I agree with Jamie for where we stand.
So,
Just because we did have to support our water fund of the general fund this past year.
so, Mr. Glenn, you're working on a rate study, is that correct? And based on conversations that we've had, you were hopeful you'd have it ready in August?
I will have it for the August Finance Committee meeting.
Mr. Chair.
You're looking okay.
If I can just make one clarification, because I keep hearing that and it's, and I don't think anybody's trying to say it incorrectly, but it's not correct. It wasn't supported from the general fund. It was supported from the American Rescue. So I guess the term could be said that that's part of it. There are requirements within the American Rescue, the ARPA, as to how that is funded, has taken place. That's where that came from.
But ARPA's gone.
Well, but part of it. So we used part of the ARPA funds to cover utility bills that weren't paid. But we also used 1.3 million of it to bring them out of the hole last year.
Right.
And that was part of the lost revenue of the ARPA funds
So the $5 million.
in ARPA now. Yeah.
I won't cover this one.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
this is 200 and some $1,000 annual payment. What I would like to see is a schedule of debt that the water fund has. Schedule of debt for sanitary. I want to see all the schedule of debt. Because when you're making a rate structure, who knows, Mr. Glenn, that 3 years from now, we may be borrowing more money. And I would like to see our rate structure based on what are the actual costs to operate.
And I have that.
And then I would like to see then what the debt structure is. And maybe we change our billing to users if there's an item that talks about debt retirement
That's,
as a separate item on our water bill.
yes.
Because we'll always be chasing. If we keep putting debt on, we'll be chasing and we'll never get ahead. Never get ahead. The fact you just got debt and debt and debt, and we become a slave to debt.
I'm working on the debt schedule right now to incorporate all of these new, because this one's new. Is your next one? Yeah, the next one's new. We don't have the debt yet for the water towers out at the airport on a payment yet. So I'm adding all of those into the debt schedule that I had done last year. So I'm working on that right now. Robert has included that in his rate study.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be looked at a little different, in my opinion,
Well,
because we're supposed to be operating. And like I say, what happens when there's another debt needed that we don't know about? That we've got to have some major rehab work that's going to take tens of millions of dollars, maybe. I don't know. I can't see in the future, but that concerns me. This project definitely needs to be done. There's no doubt about the need for it. It's how we pay for it. But until we get some structure of what our debt structure is, I can't support this today.
well, I would recommend, would you be ready by the next financial committee so we can dove in? We haven't had that discussion in this committee since I've been chair.
Mr. Chair and members, if I can share something, this is only one of the first steps to getting the documentation to the New Mexico Finance Authority. It is a long process to securing the loan, and plus, getting started before a payment is even made on the debt. I believe even the projects to some extent has to be completed, Louis?
So project be completed and incur the debt. But what we're doing right now in the process with the water task force, we're getting political support and pledge from government. We still need to submit this resolution, other finance documentation to water trust board people by September 28th, I believe, to complete the readiness application, the readiness portion of this project and the next project too, for the Hobson Road. Upon that point, then they would issue an agreement. The agreement then comes back to council. The council still has another opportunity to say at that time, no, we're not going to sign the agreement and everything freezes.
So it is a lengthy process, and Councilor, what I would submit to you all is that when you ask the question, does the water fund have the resources? By mere action of the council of supporting this project moving forward with this loan, this payment becomes a priority in the budget process too. So for example, as the budget is prepared for the following year, all debt has to be covered first, as well as personnel and expenses. So maybe this will end up, while we may have room right today for a capital purchase equipment or something, there might be very little room next year because the equipment might not be there because the debt has to be covered first.
Right.
So the council is making that policy decision and priority, saying, this is a priority, we're going to cover this first. So while the rate study might be in progress, that could raise the money for some capital. But again, it can be covered some of their equipment might not be covered next year unless there's a rate study to provide additional resources. But some of those future capital in any rate study has to be included. I believe when they did the solid waste, they factored in some of those dollars to consider what capital would be replaced in the future. So I just wanted to bring that up. But it is going to be a lengthy process that will have to come back to council for action.
Well, I understand that. I mean, I know how the mechanism works. I think I've got it figured out. I may not have it crystal clear, but I understand. But once again, we're putting ourselves in debt. We know right now, sitting in this room at this moment, we can't cover the loan without jeopardizing potentially something else in the budget. I got it. Loans are high on the list, personnel costs and all of that, and then your loan portfolio, and you got nothing else left. What do you do? And we haven't had the discussion of where we stand. I mean, I've got some idea. It's not a pretty picture, in my opinion. And I know that we've got some bonds that were paid off in 22, supposed to have been paid off. I haven't asked anybody, did they really get paid off? I feel quite certain that they did. And I'm like my cohort in crime here. I'm not comfortable doing this. And our timeline is August, you said? August when?
September 29th.
So we've got time to have a discussion in this committee so everybody knows where we're at. And the rate study, it's been promised that we'll have it to look at. In a perfect world, I'd have the rate study done in place and have some cash built up before I start spending.
That's what I'm working on. Our debt service, figuring it's 17,860 customers. Our debt service is $14 and change per customer.
Per month.
Per month.
So my $80 water bill, $14 of that goes to debt right now,
No.
service debt, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So if I get a bill from the utilities for water for $80, and only these $66 for operational costs, 14's coming right off the top to service debt. That's why I'm saying we need to look at those components separately.
And that's what I need to have you guys do is come over and look at the board in my office.
Okay.
I haven't broke down debt service, personnel and operations,
Perfect.
capital, infrastructure, everything.
Perfect. I will come see you.
Soon, I hope. I kind of need some input from you guys.
Well, I don't know what we're going to do with this. It's already been passed by infrastructure. Is that what I understood?
To consent.
You'd have to.
And I do have this loan figured into that $14.
You do?
Yes.
Well, but that's.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll retract my statement because knowing now more information that this is going to come before us again, that we at least move the process down the road. Not knowing that, so I'm going to make a motion.
I would hope we could deal with this after we get a fuller picture.
But we will.
next month.
We'll be able to deal with it when it comes back. It's coming back according to us.
You know,
It's coming back to us.
We'll come back down to,
We'll come back.
there's a lot of process to it. And I have some paperwork right here where you can read through it. And that's the process that we have submitted of all the paperwork.
Yeah, if you look on your abstracts, you can see the letters from the award letters from,
Mexico Finance Authority.
page 29.
Yeah.
This is what we have to be submitting. So even DFA is gonna wanna look at all our debt schedule and everything else. They're gonna look at it and say,
Yeah, you're right.
qualify, yea, nay based on the financial stuff that Jane will be. I'm putting together the political part and the engineering part.
And Mr. Chair, committee members, even when the application was submitted, the DFA and the state did do a review of the city's financials. So there's been some review of all of these applications, but this is not this resolution does not just commit the city to taking it. It is a process of moving it forward. There's still a loan document that needs to be executed by the city and an agreement that has to be, if the city wants the loan, and the grant component has to accept that agreement. So it is a lengthy process, just that it's the next step in going forward.
The agreement, you'll have the schedule of debt as well, the preliminary schedule of debt. The closing is like, we'll bring it back to you with agreement, so the mayor can enter into the loan. For January, the closing document.
Just a quick thought, just in my opinion, what's more important is these tanks. They're in very bad shape. And we got to get them done.
Yeah.
And if that's not possible because of the money, then I would recommend shutting down my large diameter funding that I got this year in order to fund this water rehab project. That's how critical these tanks are in need of.
These tanks have been needed in my opinion, some rehab for.
They were on our master plan in 2012.
Okay,
Yes.
there you go.
And we had, if you look at our master plan,
11 years.
they were on there, we had to divert, and they were still in the master plan, the large diameter.
And that stuff doesn't get better. by ignoring it.
And it's leaking right now.
Oh, it's been leaking for a long time.
So that's just my recommendation. If you guys have that many concerns, and that way we do have the funding to at least cover a few years worth of the debt service towards that loan repayment. So we work on increasing, doing this, our rate study. I mean, I'd be comfortable with shutting that down for now. That way we can proceed and move forward with this.
That's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
I don't like that. And I'm just telling you that I think we can get a better overall picture of this stuff after our next meeting. After we've gone through all of our loans and bonds. And we got time. We don't have to do anything till September. August is not going to make it.
Well, it's going to put them against the gun.
Well, we're against the gun about that.
September 29 is when they've got to have everything in and turned down. So.
But still.
If we move this resolution through, we can have that at least passed. And we can provide all the rest of the documentation to the finance department. That's required.
Would you schedule a special meeting to get off?
Doing this resolution is not committing us to anything right now.
Well, according to my calendar, I'm not stopping anybody from getting the paperwork ready.
That's all we're doing.
All we're doing today.
Yeah, that's all we're doing today. Resolution.
We're not ratifying, we're not agreeing, we're just saying move the paperwork ahead.
We're not executing a loan now, we're not closing on a loan, we're just.
The next finance committee meeting is the 3rd of next month, and the 15th of August is the city council meeting. So that still gives you 30 days.
You can make a motion or I can. I'm ready to move forward.
And it is ready on consent.
Whatever you want to do.
Go ahead. I'm close.
Okay. This has already been sent by the infrastructure's already sent it to full council. So it's going to be there, whatever we do. Doesn't matter what we do, it's going to be on the agenda. So, are we ratifying or would we?
This one,
We're not ratifying anything. We're just putting this,
You can actually do no decision, and it's already there.
it's already on. So it doesn't matter what we do or what we say,
It's already on.
it's on.
Now, what you do, if you want to go through this lengthy discussion with all full council, you pull it off of consent.
Yeah. He didn't put it on a consent, did you?
I think it might have it on the consent.
it's on consent.
We can easily pull this off consent.
Yeah, as long as we pull it off consent, I think I'm okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we send a full council resolution 23XX in support of funding of the Country Club Rehabilitation Project through New Mexico Finance Authority Water Project Funding, Project WPF 5980.
Got a motion and a second. Any opposed? Aye. Passes 2-1.
Mr. Chairman, I had no idea Counselor Foster would not be here. I'm going to stay on here, but I absolutely have to see the doctor at 2:45, and I wanted out of it. He said no, so I am on my way there. I'll see you,
Dial back in.
sir.
You'll be able to dial back in.
I'm listening on right now, and so I'll be keeping on. Okay.
Next item.
Item 8, Thompson Flood Retention Water Trust Board Resolution. It's the same terms as the previous item. The only difference is this is an 87% grant. So if you look at the abstract, it's 1.2 million and change, I believe, that will be financing for 20 years at a 0.25. Now, this money, as I understand, comes out of general fund. It's a different pot, but just to remind you, a couple of years ago, what happened over there, that's a picture of West Earl Cummings, Hobson Road. Again, this one has gone to infrastructure. It is on the agenda for consent. You can pull it off if you so desire. But even right now, without a quorum, it's already on there.
Oh, we got a
Yeah,
quorum.
he's still on the phone.
I stand for any questions. If you read, the only difference is the grant amount. And that's a substantial grant amount, $8 million that we don't have to pay back. And for $1.2 million or $1 million and change over 20 years to do something to the Hobson Road, I think it's prudent that we say yes.
This is another one of those very neat projects.
Absolutely.
But I can't service the debt. And money.
And it's about 50,000 a year?
62.
62, okay.
The 62 and 200 here. and
20, so we just put on, but I'm okay with moving them along right now. Because we still have the opportunity to change it, but these are both badly needed projects.
I understand. I'm not questioning the absolute necessity of both of these projects. They're not a need, they're a necessity.
Right.
Both of them. My problem is there's been a lot of debt taken on by this city.
Not in disagreement with you.
I can text them.
And we're struggling to keep our heads above water and we're adding more debt to it.
Paying that piper right now.
And we're gonna be doing it for many years.
As far as debt goes, I don't believe we'll ever get out of it. Because I don't see us generating money unless we raise tax. I don't see that, but these water trust boards, these money that we can get from the state and the federal that we keep applying for and applying for. Yeah, we're rolling the dice every time we apply. Hopefully, sometimes it's a 40% loan. Sometimes it's like in this case, only a 13% loan. But we're gonna have to keep on doing that. The council's gonna have to keep on saying which ones we keep or don't keep. But I think in this case, this would probably come out of road fund money as I would see it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Janie, but, from the point of view, if I have to give up $65,000 worth a year for 20 years for the roads, this definitely needs it. This was on the plan in 1997, the South Roswell flood project. Again, $9 million. I asked what the cost was speculated in 2000, but for 87% grant, $8 million, $1 million over 20 years. I don't think it'd get much cheaper than it's 100% grant.
So let me ask you
Yes,
a
sir.
question. So in your estimation, how far behind are we in road street repair?
The tree repair, the recommended number was $16 million a year. And that's not talking the street department's payrolls which sometimes are included in that number in their maintenance, that kind of, that's $6 million strictly projects and contracts to that. We'll never see that. We were at a D 4 years ago when we did it. We're still at a D. And that's just pavement condition. We haven't even talked about the drainage, the drainage needs that we have. We never finished the Cahoon Pond. We still gotta take care of Southeast Main and Poe. We still gotta take care of Brack. We still gotta take care of House. I put on my ICP plan, for 2029, looking ahead, the Noon Op detention pond. If you haven't noticed or paid attention, Noonop Park is a detention pond.
Yeah.
There's a drain sitting right there. When those 800 houses go in and all that other stuff goes in, when Nevada gets built, from all the way from College to Country Club, all that gets filled in, we're gonna have another need to make, either get rid of the Noonop fields lightly and put a detention pond there. There's a lot of needs if that area grows like it's supposed to grow.
Well, in Houston, Texas, all their parks are drainage ponds.
Hobbs, same thing. You go to the soccer
There's
complex,
a lot of them too.
it's one big pond.
Maybe what we have to do here.
And I had nothing against our parks becoming ponds.
Well, here, I mean, lose
Ponds don't
access.
last long. If they become ponds, they'll be quickly drawn up.
Yeah, half a dozen days a year.
Agreed. But on this topic right here, $1.2 million, something over 20 years. I mean, I'll sacrifice, of course, I won't be here forever for those 20 years, but I would say that the road fund could take a hit for $65,000 a year. But that's,
This is another one that we need to,
and I agree 100% that we need to look at the loan debt, what we can do. And that way, when engineering or anybody else that we're putting in our applications, they say you can apply, this is what you apply for. And so when I apply for this, I would apply for 90%, 95% based on the financials that I would submit with the application. So we do have to submit financials with these applications.
understand. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just bring your attention, that maybe the city of Roswell ought to be buying lottery tickets when the lottery is up.
You know, this project is a pretty big lottery. $8 million grant,
Yeah.
you don't see that too much.
Yeah, you won't get there if you just win $1 million prize every
Yeah.
time, Counselor.
Oh.
Take you a little time. Oh, you ought to win the whole,
That whole thing to $500 million.
you know what the odds of that are?
We get the 2015.
Yeah. I'm ready to make a motion with this ahead.
Okay, what's your motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend Resolution 23YY in support of funding of the Hobson Road Flood Prevention Project through New Mexico Finance Authority. Project funding, project 5979-WPF, with a total monetary agreement of $9,602,273.
Second.
Jason unmuted so that he can vote when he.
Okay, was that a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It was a second. I heard it.
Okay,
I did too.
all right, so any opposed? One, passes 2-1. This is crazy.
Item 9, Mescalero bid, bridge project bids. We actually had 4 bidders.
Cool.
And J&H has returned to bidding. Just so everybody knows, which is good. Competition is always good. That's what happened a year ago, June 21st, I believe, when it washed out. And then July 9th, governor was here and pledged money. 100% of this project is state money. The design was done by state money. We had 4 bids. Smithco had a bust in their bid. So they were actually $140,000 lower than they thought they bid. I did contact them and tell them, do you still want it? They do still want it. They manned up to the mistake. So right off the bat, we have $140,000 savings. If you look at the financials on the abstract, the unobligated money is 1.5. I think whatever the bid was on this one, 1.2 and change. So we still have unobligated money left in case, knock on wood, but if there's a oops, we still have that money that can be within the unobligated money from the DOT. And this one did go to consent from infrastructure.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
so
Louis, did you say Smithco had a bust in there? But they're still gonna stand by that.
They're standing.
And they're not gonna come back and hit you with a change order.
No. And Smithco is doing the wastewater plant, treatment plant right now for $8 million. I dealt with them in the 48-inch water line, 38-inch water lines. They're men of honor.
Okay.
They're from Bio Lake. They're old school contractors. And they're gonna stand by it.
Good.
$100 a ton times $100 a cubic yard times 100 cubic yards. They put in $150,000. Actually $10,000. That was the bust.
But they're willing to stand by
They're
it.
willing to stand by it.
Okay.
As I look at it as a city engineer, working with Smithco, the way they're gonna make that up, they just have to come in, kick it in the butt and get out of Dodge.
all right. Any other questions? Councilor Perry, do you have any questions?
Still muted.
Councilor Perry?
I'm sorry, I did not hear that last portion there. I was speaking to the nurse.
Any questions?
No questions. No, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend the awarding of ITB 23-023 for the East Mescalero Bridge, the East Mescalero Road Bridge Replacement Project to Smithco Construction in the amount of $1,218,703.26.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Moving on.
So I have item RFP 24-002 for the utility statement processing and mailing services. I am asking that you guys consider recommending the approval of the RFP scope of work for the utility statement processing and mailing services, as well as we are currently seeking qualified offers to go ahead and provide the services for the utility statement processing and mailing services. And the scope of work pretty much lays out what we are expecting in return. I stand for any questions.
Questions?
Not from me.
Questions, Councilor Perry?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend the approval of RFP 24-002, scope of work for the utility statement processing and mailing services.
Okay, second.
Second.
Yeah, consent agenda. You fine with that, Counselor?
Yes, sir. Consent agenda's fine. Second.
Okay. Any opposition? Hearing none, passes 3-0. Oh, we let you out here easy. Okay, next item. Airport security.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm here to ask recommendation for approval of RFP 2314, the Airport Security Guard Services. Back in May, we put out an RFP 23014. We had 4 proposals come back in June. The evaluation committee conducted the analysis on them, and based upon that, we recommend KR Contracting Incorporated as going ahead and going forward with approval on the contract. I stand for any questions.
Where'd our attorney go?
Steve steps in.
Yes.
Yeah. What's the optima?
Chairman, I'm concerned that I'd like to know why the local firms did not rank on top. And then we're doing business with a firm out of Maryland.
This one, I believe, is also under the proposal.
Yeah, we can't really discuss a lot of it, more RFP stuff, but I know they did do a ranking. All the evaluation committee members did score all proposals, and KR Contracting did come out on top based on the evaluation guidelines.
Real quick, I've got to learn it.
You flatter me, Chair.
Learned legal professional.
Yes.
This security guard, is this part of the TSA agreement?
Yes.
Okay. So we get full credit for this one?
Yep, 100% credit for every dollar expended on this contract.
Okay. Just one thing?
Or actually, it's close to like 80%, but there's a reason for that.
Okay, well, got it. I just want to make sure we're getting.
No, yeah, this is 100%. We're kind of stuck doing it.
Very good. Any other questions?
Again, counselors, if you would like to get with me to review any proposal documents.
I think council should see what these things are.
Yeah, I agree. You're voting on it, so it makes sense.
Actually, I want to check. So Counselor, how would you like that presented to you? Would you like just to see it? What other places I've worked at do is you'll get a confidential packet and it'll have everything like that, everything for RFPs in a document before it goes to full council. And you usually get that the month before. Would that be an easier way for you guys to digest it instead?
I think it would be.
Okay. And are you guys okay with electronic? You just got to make sure you delete it. So when IMPRAs happen, we don't accidentally send it out before it's allowed. So that's an easy thing for you guys.
Yeah, if
We'll coordinate it then.
definitely.
Okay.
And we'll see you before council.
Right.
Yeah, no, you'll get it, well, pretty much as soon as the recommendation has been made and is publicized in the agenda, that will be part of what you get sent over separately electronically.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. We can do that.
That would be beneficial. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Councilor Perry, you have any questions on this item?
No, sir. Thank you.
What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the award recommendation for RFP 23-014 Airport Security Guard Services and authorization for the city manager to enter into the contract with KR Contracting, Inc.
Have a second?
I'll put it on the consent agenda.
Second, sir. Is it consent?
I'll put it on the consent, Councilor Perry, but I may pull it depending upon the information that we receive.
Absolutely. Second.
Okay, got a motion second. All those opposed signify by saying aye. Hearing none, passes 3-0. Now we're on to public affairs. Item 12.
Mr. Chair, committee members,
Capital project.
I'll start this item first. So this is the ICIP for 2025, 2029. This is a plan that is required by the state of New Mexico from all the communities. It is a 5-year plan, again, that covers 2025 and 2029. As you see there, there's the submission deadlines. They require special districts, tribal governments, counties, and municipalities. Their plan is due on Friday, August 18th. And I'll go through this a couple of slides just for the benefit of those that are online and present here. So the intent of this list was to allow for discussion and decision among staff and city council on the projects and prioritize for funding. The process and actions to consider is the committee recommendations of the top projects ranking to the full city council for adoption of the FY 25-29 ICIP list for submission of legislative priorities for the 2024 legislative session in December. The session starts a 30-day session, which starts on January 16th. So what you see here is just a picture of all of the funding cycle and all of the different funding sources. As you can see there in July, September, we have the Water Trust Board. It includes the NMDOT, the ICIP So this is the cycle where everything starts, planning for projects, submitting applications, legislature, and then, of course, every state agency that has grants or loans are part of this cycle here. So that's just to give you a visual of how everything is starting to start with the July fiscal year beginning and legislative session coming up. So how did we do last year? So last year with Resolution 2253, as you can see there, those were the top projects selected by the city council last year. With the Country Club Reservoir, storm drainage, the large diameter water line, vehicle sanitation, the adult center, and the air center terminal. So that was the ICIP resolution. So how did the city do in 2023 legislative session? Those projects underlined are the ones that were listed in the ICIP resolution. $2 million for the air center, $200,000 for all-inclusive park, $300,000 for city streets, $800,000 for storm drainage, $300,000 for water lines and valve replacement. Under the junior bill, $260,000 for PD vehicles. And of course, we have the Water Trust Board for the Country Club Reservoir project. So those were all the projects that were funded last year as we started through the ICIP process. So here we have some of the projects. I think when we start the budget, we do fund a lot of capital, as you all are aware. But some of those capital projects are small projects. This is what was just a snippet of what was included in the FY24 project. But there's a lot of other needs that do not make it in the budget. And that's what we're going to start talking about with the ICIP. So every committee will be hearing all the different departments like we did last year. And we are asking everybody to kind of rank the projects that will be presented to you all. Here are the dates for those committees that will be presented. And hopefully by the city council meeting on the 13th or a special meeting, however it's decided, the council will be able to rank all of the projects that have been submitted to the different committees. And then a ICIP can be developed for submission by the August 18th deadline. Just on a side note, after hearing the discussion on those two other big projects for the loans, again, as we go through these projects, there are going to be some projects that are going to be high dollar. And it is up to the council ultimately to give staff direction of how to proceed and seek the funding for those projects. Those that get legislative funding, obviously that's all capital appropriation. There's no loan component to it. But there will be projects that will be over $1 million that, based on what I'm hearing, may be a pre-direction from the council is where would you like these funding sources to be applied for? Because a lot of the agencies at the state will offer a grant loan combination. It will not be 100% grant. So that could be something to keep in the back of your mind as we go through the process, because there are some of the projects will be high dollars. With that, Mr. Chair, committee members, I will stand. Well, we have the first department to present is Public Affairs. And in your packet, you have the list of projects, and I'll bring up that capital project list. Go ahead, Juanita, if you want to.
Sure. So I am presenting our public affairs list in ranking order for this coming year. The number one project that we've ranked for this year was the visitor center expansion, which included the garage doors, additional space for storage, opening up the one bathroom that is currently closed because we don't have storage, which would offer public restrooms. In last year's budget, it was allocated, we had $300,000 allocated, and we spent almost over $74,000 for construction shovel-ready documents. That was completed by the end of the fiscal year. It was awarded to Moltz Corbin through the RFP process. We had community meetings with their input and what they would like to see for the visitor center. We were requesting that the actual build of the project be used out of the lodger's tax money because we had previously requested to use ARPA money, which is an eligible expense. That was denied by the council. So we did have some funding in lodger's tax ending, I think it was the ending cash balance, but I don't think we have that anymore because that was moved over to the zoo. Is that correct? Yeah. So the estimated total project now that we have shovel-ready documents is about $800,000. That does change depending depending on material and building costs. So that was our number one project. Our number two, if we're not going to be able to do that, was the counter space with storage, with facilities coming in and looking at what was needed. It was an estimated at $20,000. That's our number two. We would like our number three project to fix the LED sign that's on the corner of 5th and Main. The electrical box hasn't worked for a long time. We would like to replace the panels and have a digital sign so we can promote community-related events and things that are happening in the city, very similar to Convention Center Marquee. Number four was updating our mural project, which we do have some funding for. We had gotten a quote from one of the artists. It's about $75,000. Number five, we used to have tourism bus or trolley as separate. We combined those. At the time, the council had wanted us to do itinerary tours for visitation through bus associations. And so one of the things that we used to do is we would pitch what we call snowbirds. We bring those people in from Canada, from Phoenix during their hot months, in our cold months, in their cold months, our warm months. And we take them around to different entities like Bottomless Lakes. We would take them to Historical Society, take them to a downtown luncheon, but we didn't have transportation. At one point in time, it was discussed that an old transit bus can be converted, and that's why it's on our list. Number six was our Air Center store. We previously used to do pop-up shops where the elevator shaft is at. Currently, we would set out a table and we would sell our city merchandise. We did really well out at the Air Center. Due to staffing, we have not been out there since COVID. So that is still on there. I don't know what the cost would be if we would still be in the elevator shafts because so many things have changed. And then number seven was wayfinding. So we actually have shovel-ready documents for the design part of wayfinding. Wayfinding included our bikes and trails plan, our Air Center signage, that would be the entrance. It included some bus stop signage that would be consistent with the brand. Those have been done, but they did not make the budget last year, nor did they make the budget this year. And then 8 and 9 were also previous asks of the council in the direction that we were moving, which included sports tourism. That position has now been eliminated, so we put that at the bottom. And then number 9 was more of a wish, not a need. What we've done is just converted someone's office, a portion of it to do our videos and things like that. So that concludes our list, and I'll stand for any questions. And open to your direction.
We had it on this last year, got approved for us yet.
We were asking the committee members to at least recommend 2 projects, the top 2 projects, to be submitted to the council for, as part of the ICIP.
Right. What are the total items that we submitted to Santa Fe last year? How many of those got
funded?
Funded. And for the amounts that we asked?
Well, again, that's what was on the PowerPoint. Going back here, these were those that were, this was the ones that made it on the resolution.
Those were on the list that we asked. That was our wish list right there.
To the legislature.
To the legislatures.
Yes, sir.
And that's what this is about. So what did they fund?
What they funded, this was in the resolution, and the ICIP resolution as a top 5. It included every project that the committees last year submitted to the council for the ICIP. Those ICIP, which were about over 40 projects, were included in the ICIP 24-28. So they were submitted. However, these projects were the ones that were submitted to the legislature for funding through capital appropriations. What was funded are these projects that were underlined.
So we got $2 million for the airport.
Yes.
We got $200,000 for the all-inclusive park.
That wasn't one of the top 5, but they funded it anyway.
They funded it. It was on the list, but they funded it.
That's right.
And then for the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on there, that's what we got from ICIP.
That's what we got. That's what we got
ICIP request.
From capital appropriations.
Capital appropriations. So the junior bill for the PD was not that.
it wasn't in the ICIP, but we got it from.
We got funding for it.
Yes, sir.
Through another methodology, but it was not through the ICIP. So I will tell you, just so you know, I had conversation with legislator and these multi-million-dollar deals, they don't have the authority. So you're just wishing in the wind when you're asking for $5 million for them on the ICIP, or $2 million or whatever. And the other thing you're going to wish for in the wind, just so you pass this on the other vehicles, they're not going to put vehicles on.
Right.
They just find that those are short-term assets using long-term debt, and they're not interested in that anymore. So just beware.
Right. One of the things that we were talking with some of the department heads is if they could phase out their projects, ones that are really large. I know Lorenzo and I were talking about that. And, phase them out and then, 3 phases, and then it would divide that amount that they're requesting for ICIP, which would be easier to get.
Let me ask a question. So if these water towers that we just discussed hadn't been on the ICIP, could we go on the Water Trust Board anyway?
We could have gone anyway, but the thing is, the way it works, a lot of my stuff, when you see it infrastructure, I already have 26 projects, $35 million worth of requests on the ICIP. I know I'm not gonna get that, but I need them on the ICIP, so I can do a check mark when I apply somewhere else, that, yeah, it's a priority somewhere, even if it's the last one. And as you look at mine, I'll give you a preview. A lot of mine is talking about Country Club, 4-lane, Nevada, construction, the new knock drainage, all that stuff looking down the road, but I want to have it, number one, on the radar, so council will think about it, but is whatever Biden money, whatever you want to call it, comes up, then if there's an opportunity, yes, it's ICIP number project 2029, they don't care. They just want to know that you can check that box and it's on the list.
Right.
So
You're never going to get funded through ICIP.
No.
So Councilor, to your question, I mean, yes, so the funding agencies do require a project to be on the ICIP list. And that
ICIP list just needs to be your wish list, not necessarily what you go.
You're not going to get it.
Now, to play the game with the legislature, yeah, I'll ask for Washington $600,000 phase 3. Because I know the legislature look at that and say, oh, 600,000, we'll give a little chunk here. And that's, I mean, if you look at Washington, chunk here, and we're slowly progressing. You know, if you $10 at a time, but
yeah,
I'm doing something.
But you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, the other departments have to realize that ask for small amounts. You just eat that elephant and bite it at a time.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, before you even ask for little pieces, it's got to be on your ICIP.
Absolutely.
So I never have gotten really excited about the ICIP list, except I want everything that I can think of in the bucket. That way, if an opportunity knocks, may not be my number one priority, may not be listed as number one priority, but if it's a priority on the list and you've got an opportunity, no matter where it is on the list, you can jump out and get it secured.
Yeah.
So I mean, in priority order that we've given them, doesn't matter.
What's happening with you guys, just to reemphasize what Juan said, every committee will pick their top 2 and put in the list for the event. You guys are still gonna have typically you guys have a workshop, and you go put your little tabs and everything, and then whoever wins, wins. Okay? And then legislature gets that top 5 list, and then doesn't mean they're gonna get it, just means that's the first one they look at. But legislature will also look down, see inclusive park, and hey, they're still short, let's give them another 200,000.
Yeah, that's where we got.
That's what we got.
Yeah.
But it was on.
It was on the idea.
It just wasn't on top 5.
And so I look at it as whenever we pick our top 5 at the special council meeting, we pick the ones that I don't necessarily, at least in my mind, I don't look for legislative appropriation for that amount. But I know that it's a priority that we got to deal with, just like these water towers. Those water towers should have been dealt with sometime in the last 11 years. And it wasn't. Why wasn't it? Well, because it wasn't focused on. And problem with those water towers, they're getting to the point now where if we lose one of them, it collapses. Then what are we gonna do? Because you lose all the water pressure in the tank. Period. That's the end of that deal. So you pump up to where that pipe is and go cap it and put the pressure on your pump and make things work. That is not a good thing. Because then you start having pump failures because they're working too hard.
As engineers, that's why we build twin reservoirs, twin towers. We build in redundancy because
But the
stuff
other,
does happen, but you always have one to back up.
the other side of that is you can't replace one of those tires, I'll bet you, for less than $12 million.
Rehab, I mean, the rehab is $8 million, so I'll double that at least.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, if one of them collapses and you can't rehab it when that happens, you gotta go in there and reconstruct. One of them's gonna cost you a whole lot more than the other.
I would just tell the counselors that you look at the list, whenever we look at the list, whatever's there, look at the ones that they can fund, and those are typically 750,000 and less.
Yeah.
Put those on the list to capture the attention of the legislature, so we get a little something. And we saw that 200,000 for inclusive park, 300,000 for large diameter projects. I mean, that's 4 or 5 valves, but it gives us valve control. $300,000 for streets. I'll go run another 5 or 6 blocks.
Yeah.
Well, streets are easy. You can either do one block or you can do 15.
Absolutely.
You know,
But my focus there is just look at the money amount. It's not a whole lot. You just ask for a little and you get some.
well, but unlike water projects, you get started down that pipe, replacing it, and then you see that the piece that you're trying to stop at is in worse shape than the one you've already uncovered.
Like plumbing at your house, you never.
I know. That's right.
May I get your guys' recommendation for this, for mine? Streets, you will have this time. Mine are not in the $12 million range. I think the total of items 1 through probably 4 is only $1 million.
Well, I got it, but this is discussion that everybody needs to understand, regardless if it's a $100,000 deal or a $100 million deal. If it's not on your ICIP, nothing's gonna happen to it. If you take anything off of here, you haven't done anything, because it's still on the request list, but just don't cut too deep, that's all I'm asking you. Put them all on there and do the best we can with what we get. So you want out of these 9 items,
Is my ranking aligned with what you guys are interested in moving forward with public affairs? And if so, what would be your top 2? Because I think that's what I have to give to one. What would be your top 1 and top 2?
You're the chair. Pick them.
you know, I've made it a rule in this committee that I don't make the motion.
I'm making a motion. This is not a motion.
Ask Jason, he's still listening. Ask Jason, he's still listening.
I am still with you. I'm just listening.
Okay, well,
Okay, I'll go for a trolley.
for a trolley,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna go for a trolley, that's your number 1? Okay,
That'll bring a lot of people around, man.
okay. Well, I happen to know that if Counselor Perry was here, he'd probably second that because he talks about the trolley project they used to talk about. So you have any objection to the trolley being the number one?
Whatever y'all desire, I'm more than ready for whatever y'all would desire. We're putting it forward, and like they said, there'll be a whole lot coming from a lot of committees, and then we'll have the opportunity to determine our top 5.
Okay. What's number 2?
I've already picked one. I'm sorry, you may have a
Oh, let's do the LED sign for number 2. There, is that what you wanted?
Yes.
Not in that order.
Well, I got your list here and we kind of messed it up.
Yes, but that's it.
That's closer to what we could maybe afford if we had it funded.
Right.
All right, Mr. Chair, so number 1 is the trolley bus,
And number 2 is the LED sign.
the LED sign.
Then list the rest of them in proper order with the recommendation by.
So we have on the convention center, we have a list. Go ahead.
Chairman. So on our list, the first one that was talked about, that was our bond payment. So we're looking for emergency generator. So in case of a natural disaster or anything, the convention center is used for relief for anybody to stay over for time being where that disaster, we could have backup generators, approving our lights in the pre-function on the south half of our pre-function, the pre-existing building that was there before they did the add-on. The lighting is very insufficient. Number 3 would be a washer and dryer to do our in-house linens, but the industrial size ones like they have at the fire department. So we can wash all of our linens and stuff that services and spending the extra money on that. Tinting the windows to cut back on the heat costs. The heating of the building, a lot of people don't like being in direct sunlight because it amplifies the heat there. And we're moving our leak room. You can see it's already 40% done. We're building a cage inside, so double doored, locked up area for the liquor room internally inside the building. And then our last one is remodeling upstairs. There's a lot of wiring and different stuff, and our fire marshals told us that it's not up to code, so we need to do something up there.
You picked the first one.
Well, being what he said, and that he's got listed as item number 6, the fire marshal saying that's a real problem.
Well, we don't go up there very often, and it's not used. He just saw the door open and walked up there with code 3 last year and was like, oh no, this shouldn't be here. It's just the old code plan.
Is it a safety hazard?
There's no electric branch home, nothing like that. It's just a couple uncovered boxes that he saw and he pointed out himself.
How many square feet is this area?
Roughly. I'd probably say about 1,800.
And it could be 1,800. And it could be utilized for what if it was up to code?
It would be storages, it could be offices. We couldn't use it for events because the access is in the back hallway where our staff were the only allowed. So we put offices up there, storage rooms, different items.
We need it.
Always need more storage.
The elevator would be nice.
Yeah, there's no elevator. The stairway, I don't believe would be up to code as far as the step distances, heights and stuff. So talk about a remodel up there. Right now, they use it for some storage of things for seasonal events and things like that. It's a great place to get stuff up there if you can carry it up there to store it. It's almost like having an attic.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
Can you help me? I heard almost all of that, but how much is the consideration on that to do that remodel up there?
Well, they've got it listed as 400,000.
I've been up there several times. I'd be surprised if we could get it done for that. I mean, I heard Mike, I think it was Mike speaking, say it's like having an attic, and that's exactly how I would view it. The rest of the building looks fairly new, and then you walk up there and you realize, really what used to be there. So I think there may be a lot more to that, just as consideration.
So the quote on there was originally, I believe, from last year or the year before. My first time doing this, I did not mess with the pricing. So I would say it'd probably be more like $600,000 to $700,000 because it has not been touched in 25 years.
Okay. Yeah, we can go another year or two without touching it.
That's number 6.
I just heard the fire marshal always bothers me when I hear those.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that, or I choose the emergency generator as item number 1.
Whoa, you got a lot of money in your pocket today.
Probably 580, but, you know, does that be correct? A facility over there does not have backup emergency generators. It's
No,
one of the
it's-
largest city-owned facilities. And if we were to ever to have some kind of disaster or whatever, people need to congregate in that larger facility, it's not gonna happen.
Well, I like LED lights, so I'd like that number 2, which is what he's got listed.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Councilor Hildebrand that generator is long overdue and needs to be considered as quickly as possible.
Okay, do you object to the LED lighting, number 2?
Councilor, just question.
Not at all.
Well, here's something, when I look at this list, Councilor, the LED lighting is 150,000. And like the convention center window tint is 30. What if you made them those one item? And it's $180,000 item.
Okay. I don't object to you. Councilor Perry.
No, sir, no objection.
Okay, so we'll call LED lighting number 2, along with the convention center tent.
Yes.
Okay, we're done with that.
Yep.
Energy.
Energy. Lights will save you energy and then tent save you on heating and cooling costs.
I think those are best choices.
So the next department is IT, and they only have one item, which is to replace the workstation computers for $50,000.
I thought we're good.
So
You good with that?
Why do they only want 50?
that's on.
They say change from 40 to 20. It's an ongoing project.
And he's not here, unfortunately, to answer that question.
And all he gets is 50, I guess.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, we're done with that. That took care of item 12. And now down to somebody's worried about approval of minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I want to make it all inclusive.
Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes of the May 15, 2023 special meeting, along with the minutes from the June 1, 2023 regular meeting.
Councilor Perry, have I got a second?
Yes, sir. Second.
Okay, any corrections or deletions? Hearing none, all those opposed signify by saying aye. Passes 3-0. Now we're to non-action items, information report.
And Mr. Chair, committee members, so this is the June gross receipts tax, collected $0.7 million, budgeted 3.2, so a positive variance of $456,832. Again, as you can see, you just pretty much follow the same trends as previous fiscal years. When we look at the year-to-date activity, we budgeted $38 million. We actually received, this is a net, $44.8 million for a positive variance of $6.8 million from the budgeted number, 18% higher. Any questions on the GRT?
No. Good on us.
I bet we spent that money though, didn't we?
Oh, we changed.
For cannabis, June, we received 19,951. Year-to-date collected is 196,170. Janie did receive an email from DFA on the budget, and one of the paragraphs included in the memo is that the cannabis is not restricted to any extent guideline.
It
So
has no restrictions tied to it. You all got that email. It's the budget instructions that came out from DFA.
On the step,
Yeah.
how it's spent.
Yeah. So we can spend it on anything. There's no restrictions.
We can,
General fund expense.
we can buy
Lottery
drug
tickets.
sniffing dogs.
you can smoke it up any.
Your lottery tickets.
Have a party.
Maybe we can buy some police vehicles with it. I don't know.
So in your packet, you have the Elizabeth updated grant projects worksheet for the year. Capital appropriations that were expiring June 30th have pretty much been expended. And now we go into the new fiscal year and go through the process again. So any questions on that?
Looks like you got everything you can get your hands on.
Yes. It's
Good job.
Elizabeth keeping good track of all those projects.
That's great.
Largest tax.
So we are, this is a activity that's collected in May. Believe it or not, all of our hotels turned in their reports. We were so excited about that. We usually have one that's late. Starting data shows we're at about 65% for the month of April, which was on par for last year, and year to date was up about 6%. The ADR was up about 7% from last year, which is good for us, especially where occupancy is at. The May collections for April activity, we did 130,000 for the 5% of lodgers tax that was collected. And then for the $2.50 bed fee, if you go to the next slide, we were at 63,965. That's where we're sitting at. Looking a little bit ahead of where we're at, we're pretty good on Carson and Marcel for June, but not bad.
I don't know if I want to talk about this or not.
Don't matter.
Okay, next slide.
7:30.
So we did go out and we started a whole new process on collecting the very bad debts. Especially on the real estate stuff. We've been working with some of the title companies, realtors. We've come up with a new process. When we see a house that's going to go for sale, or if we see a house that has been foreclosed on, we're watching the legal ads for the foreclosures, and we're watching for any of these that might go onto the market. And if they're owing us more than $5,000 as a group under one owner's name, then we're going after them. Good. These we've actually put liens on. If they haven't been filed, they will be by the end of the week. They've been approved through legal, and Todd over in property management is helping us with that. So it goes from my office over to water billing. And then we work back and forth with that. And then after that's done, it goes over to Todd and he files the lien. But these are the ones that we're just filing now.
So when you see a foreclosure on one of these properties, do you see it soon enough to get involved with the litigation?
Yes.
You're not waiting until it's going to be sold?
Nope.
Notice. Okay, very good.
Todd checks the legals every day.
Okay.
And anything that's getting foreclosed on gets sent over to water billing. They check and make sure if there's a balance or not. And if there's any kind of a balance, we file the paperwork to get on that foreclosure. Good.
Okay.
We've had one of our title companies really step up and help us try and get the process going right. So.
Good deal.
And then we'll just continue working through these.
Good.
We don't want to do it unless it's a whole bunch. It needs to be worth it. filing it for $100 and some dollars. Yeah.
That's wasted.
Those we can turn over to the collection agency if we get them. The ones over $5,000, we want to make sure that we get our money back. And we did that recently with 2 properties. The guy owed us over $40,000.
Oh, gosh.
And they took it right off the top of the sale.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's the way it works. Yeah.
And this actually was the bank that called because they knew that there was a problem. And the bank said, let us know how much.
Well, that's because what happens, and this is all legal stuff, is the municipalities or counties or government agencies, if they've got a lien for tax or utilities or any of that stuff, you move ahead of the bank. You actually step up, and the bank, when they get wind of it, many times will call you and say, hey, we'll just go ahead and take that, we'll send you a check, and then they'll just make it part of the suit if you're quick enough in getting in there. That's the reason why I asked the question. You know, if we're getting there on the front end of this deal, we'll be made whole, and then they go on with their legal action.
So that's what we're working through. It's a process, but it seems to be working. We'll see what happens if we start collecting. You know, we collected the $40-some thousand. That was a good one.
Well,
the guy is very upset with us.
Well, that's good.
Okay, whether it's upset or not, he owed you, right?
And that's what I told him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made the bill.
I can't see it because.
Be upset with himself.
$26,280 is what the total of all that stuff is right there.
Okay, all right.
I think it's good.
Where are we on our arrears and the water bills? Do you have a good figure? Don't look at her, she got your.
I had 2 dates with her today and she ditched me on both of them.
I think it was about 1.5 million last. Did you say about 1.5 million in unpaid water bills?
We're still at that level.
Oh, yeah. I would say it's probably closer to 1.4.
I mean, with all these debt collectors and everything else, like we're implementing this might help us start moving in the right direction, bringing the fund back on top of the.
What are we doing as a public announcement? We need to be doing something.
Well, and that's one thing that I was going to get with Juanita and Todd about.
We need to
and start getting some information.
Yeah, I don't think it's not. You need to let the citizens know there's $1.4 million that your neighbors aren't paying.
Oh, and that's been in the newspaper.
Yeah. And I think it continues to be there, pounding.
It needs to be on our website somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, and I think when you're looking at a rate study, you have to take into account all the people that are not paying, because if you're taking the total cost or the total debt or anything divided by the 17,000 accounts and only actually 15,000 are paying, it's going to raise that amount.
Exactly correct. Got to put that in your uncollectibles.
Yeah, the uncollectibles. And we're working on that right now. So for year end.
What percentage of your gross volume is uncollectible?
Yep.
But I think it's getting better. We're not having as many shut-offs as we were. People are learning to pay their bills. We still have the regulars that go, you know, well, I'm just not going to pay it. We go, fine, then we're going to shut you off.
Right.
Chantel's still taking people to court, and a lot of it's repeats now of ones that, you know, just go out and turn their water back on or do whatever they want because they think they can do that. And the judge is getting kind of grumpy with them.
Good. It's finally in your favor.
There are several arrest warrants out because of water issues.
That's you.
Well, between that and the newspaper reporting it and this, I think it's getting people's attention. So we're seeing an increase, but we haven't even been back up and functioning yet a year in collections. We just started doing that in September of last year.
Right.
So.
Well, at least it's not growing. We're at least treading water.
Yeah.
And just like I said, we were going from having 80 to 90 shutoffs a day to now we're down to maybe 30.
Well, 80 to 90 a day.
Yeah, when we first started doing the shutoffs, we had to put 4 guys on it to get it done.
All hands.
And when you don't make them pay for 2.5 years, they think you're still kidding when you're not, so.
No.
But then like today, we had one guy hadn't paid his bill in 4 months. Came in, paid his bill, and he wanted his water on that instant.
Well,
You just put him on schedule, did you?
Well, and that's why he finally got sent over to my office, and I told him, I said, we'll get to you in the schedule like everybody else. I want it on now. I said, well, then you probably should have paid your bill 4 months ago, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. Then he hung up. So,
Put his water on.
Tell them it would be 4 months before you turned it on.
yeah. Well, and I've used that a couple of times. You know, if we could use the same schedule you're using and we'll turn you on in 3 months, you know? It's never their fault.
Of course it's not.
You remember that from being a judge.
Oh, yeah, never their fault.
We become a,
Judge, you just don't understand. Well, I understand 2 things. You're sitting over there where you are. I'm sitting up there in this hot black room. So that part, we understand that part. Yes, Judge. Okay, so this is what you're accused of. You gonna plead guilty or not guilty? I'll set it on my trial docket. What do you want to do? You make the decision. Makes me no difference. You just tell me up or down, take it to the next step. I don't want to hear your life history today. Furthermore, I'm not going to hear it when we're trial either. You know, just the facts.
It's kind of funny when they end up over here in front of the judge again and he goes, so what part of this did you not understand?
That's another, I like that. I use that phraseology a lot. You know? Well, so what happened to you the last time you were put? Well, Judge, you did this. I said, okay. You know it's going to be worse this time, don't you? Oh, yeah, Judge, I understand. Okay, here we go.
Because he always puts them on probation for 6 months. And part of that is you have to pay your bill. And if you don't pay your bill, you go back and visit him.
And the probation period ends the date the citation hits the court, and you can impose that sentence plus any new sentence and run them concurrent or consecutive.
I have a feeling that we're going to have a couple of them that are just on permanent probation, maybe more.
Well, you talk about, I call it time to reflect. You need some time to reflect. You are going to have a week time to reflect. Did I not, Miss Rita?
Well, you threatened to throw me in jail.
Well, you needed some time to reflect.
That's hilarious.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
is there any video of that? I'd love to have seen that.
Oh, my God.
No, there's not, so there.
Doggone it. Wow. That would be something to see.
yeah.
It wasn't in the courtroom, I don't think.
That was, we were talking about the fighting cats.
Oh, the fighting
Yes.
I remember that. Okay, so moving on. We've had enough fun now. Let's talk about the Hispano Chamber. We got their documents in here. Okay. Are you here for them?
No, public participation, no, it's just.
Oh, okay.
I will
We'll
ask you
get
one
to that.
thing. I've asked Mr. Nama before, when they give us their financial statements, he just puts the current month in. Give us the month, give us the year to date, and he just doesn't seem to understand that question, I guess. So I need to have both current and year to date. The EDC happens to do that. I think everybody else happens to do that as well. So if you will just get onto that, I would appreciate it.
I would know, and I think both of them are just missing the month of June, that will be forthcoming.
Yeah, and so tell them to put the month,
And the
And the year to date.
And we did cut their checks, so we have them available to them. If I can give them ahead of time before the month of June, or do I need to hold on to those?
Because they will both become, all of them will be coming for the renewal of their contracts.
In this next fiscal year, yes.
Yes. So,
And what's his membership number looking like? I'd like to keep up with that.
It was, I don't have it in front of me, it was in your guys' packet. Both, I think both of them were in there.
but you can't tell what his membership income is because he doesn't give it to you year to date. He just gives it to you for the month. So that's not a fair picture of what is going on over there. So again, we'll need to have that.
Okay, message will be delivered.
And I think you can give them their checks.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, so we're down to EDC. Michael, you have anything you wish to allow?
Mr. Chairman, councilors, back to what you were just talking about. I don't have anything new, but I can speak about it this time. But Becky just said, we also sent a letter, Counselor, that was endorsed, that verifies our insurance and all that stuff. So all that's been provided to the city. We're just waiting for our audit to be completed for year end and our year end financials. So that was just for submitted to our CPA. And once we receive the year end, then we'll provide it to the city as usual. But we provided a notarized as required statement about adherence to policy as outlined in our contracts. I don't know if they're all like that, but ours is, and we have to do that well over a month ago.
When does the contract come for renewal?
It will be this year as well. So both Hispano and EDC, this is their final renewal on the previous contract.
It's going to be ratified, isn't it?
I believe on the renewals, it does not. But they'll initiate a new contract that would include a new scope of work that would then come before you guys.
Okay.
And it has to happen in this fiscal year to begin July 1 of 24.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, Councilor, one of the things we talked about a year ago when we were talking about the contract was that puts the EDC anyway in a position to try to give you year-end financials when our year hasn't ended like yours hasn't. So I recommended that we make the requirement in July versus in June to provide an annual report because yours not over yet. So maybe that might help clear this up in the future. Because, we can wait till July to get paid for, I know you have to do your payments this year, which is fine, but my suggestion is we do that stuff in July because our years hasn't ended yet.
Right.
And there's still activity going on that we don't support because we have to submit a report earlier in June. So you don't have the full picture. That's my point. You miss out on some June stuff and then you'll get the stuff more timely.
I mean, you're up to date here. You made it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions, Councilor Perry?
No, sir, no questions whatsoever.
Okay. So information technologies in front of us. Is there anything new to add that anybody's aware of? And lien report, we've already gone through some of that. Yeah, I know. You're laughing.
Public comment. We're done with that.
Okay, now we're down to public participation. Sir, you've been very patient.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Councilors, my name is Mark Brooks. I'm with the Utility Workers Union of America, our national staff. As you know, we're very proud to represent City of Roswell hourly employees in the blue collar unit. We're speaking of the employees who work hard every day delivering essential services to city residents, including the folks who deliver clean water every day to every single business and every single residence in this town, keeping our roads repaired, parks up to date, sanitation workers, sewer, transit employees. In short, it's the folks who work hard every day to make delivering essential services to city residents that makes Roswell such a great community. So I want to just take a couple minutes of your time today. I know that the city's in the midst of your budget deliberations, preparing the final budget. And I want to take a minute, speaking on behalf of city workers, to express our grave concern, well, no, really our dismay, that the preliminary budget adopted by City Council a few weeks ago fails to invest, fails to prioritize these essential services that city residents deserve and depend on, by failing to invest properly in the skilled employees who deliver those services. So I know you're in the middle of city budget, so we want to come by and express our views. We know, by the way, that balancing a budget is never easy for a city council. We also know, however, and I'm sure you all know, that the city cannot possibly deliver quality services to city residents without investing in the skilled workers who deliver those city services every day. We also know, and I'm sure you all know, the city of Roswell has to compete not only with just other cities in the region for workers, but also the private sector. And yet what your preliminary budget adopted by the council a few weeks ago, in effect, cuts city workers' wages to the bone. I mean, the proposal is to eliminate step increases entirely, which were provided for, of course, in the union contract, and to cut cost of living increase to a bare bones 1%, much less than what had previously been discussed during these various budget discussions. And so as a result of that, as you all already know, is that city workers are leaving employment. You have numerous unfilled positions, and city workers are having to balance their family budgets as well and think about whether or not the city really cares, values their work. Just a few numbers. The city professional staff conducted a wage survey of the communities that you compete with recently, and determined that the city of Roswell is already 7% behind other surrounding communities in what they pay city workers. City staff informed council that the cost of living increase based on CPI last year was nearly 9%. The preliminary budget that you've adopted, you proposed, as I said, eliminates step increases altogether and proposes a sort of a meager bare bones 1% cost of living increase. And what that means, if you think about it, is that if this budget were to pass as a final budget, you're ending up imposing an 8% cut in workers' family budgets. My fear, which we think should be your fear, is that if city workers, if this budget goes through as the preliminary budget, city workers will continue to lose faith that city council values their work, and they will be forced by economic necessities, frankly, to look for other better paying jobs in the surrounding area. And we, as a union, and we as speaking for the city workers, we don't want that to happen. We actually care about delivering essential services to city residents. That's what we're all supposed to be our number one priority. But our real concern is that this budget that has been adopted, the preliminary budget, can't be the final budget. The final budget needs to invest more properly in skilled workers who make the city work. That means restoring funding for the step increases and providing a much more reasonable cost of living increase so that people can not fall behind so much. If you adopt the preliminary budget as your final budget, Roswell is going to continue falling behind. Several years ago, the city adopted a new compensation plan. Two essential elements of that, and this was designed to bring Roswell somewhere closer to the other cities that you compete with in the labor market. Two key parts of that is cost of living increases that somehow doesn't even keep up with inflation, but is a bit more reasonable, plus step increases. you adopt the preliminary budget, the numbers that you've done for the preliminary budget, Roswell is going to continue falling behind. Workers are going to continue losing faith in the city council and in the city, and they will continue looking for work elsewhere. And you'll have trouble filling jobs that deliver what really matters, should matter most to all of us, essential services to city of Roswell residents. I'm happy to see that now that we have the June figures for gross receipts taxes, that in fact, if I understand the year-to-date figures attached to your packet today, that gross receipt taxes this year nearly 12% higher than last year. And yet the budget projections that this committee adopted and the preliminary and the council adopted slashed the city staff's projections for gross receipt taxes, by, well, actually you pegged gross receipts tax projections at $800,000 less in 21, 22, when of course the city was in the midst of, it was a coronavirus pandemic, when receipts had gone down substantially. In other words, actually, what was it? Some over $2 million cut from what the projections were made by your professional staff. I'm just pointing out that there is room in the budget. If you prioritize essential services for city workers, there's room in the budget to do better by the city workers who deliver those services. We ask you to keep faith in those workers by, please, in the final budget, doing better by the city workers that deliver essential services to city residents. I know that we sent council members a letter summarizing many of these points. We hope that you will all review that. We hope that you will please contact us to engage the world in these questions. We do represent voters and workers in this town. We're proud to do so. We really want to work with the city, continue making this a great preliminary budget. Thank you so much.
Are you aware that very late, very late, we got a big $1.5 million bill for medical insurance for our employees?
I am aware of that. Thank you, sir.
Which is going backwards. It's not for stuff going forward. That's a reach back.
As I said, we understand that it's never easy for a city council to balance the budget. What we're urging is that city workers who deliver essential services should be a priority in what we do. I'm just, again, to point out, budget that was adopted, the preliminary budget cut way more than that from the projections in the gross receipts taxes, which your professional staff had estimated based on year-to-date for this year. And in fact, the final numbers that are available to you now show that actually last year was at least 12% over last year for gross receipts tax receipts, if I understand. And you said 18%, I think, if I understood that correctly. So there is some room there.
I think I'm going to ask Mr. Fuentes. The gross receipts came in at 44 million for this the year ending 23. The budget for 24 is based on that same number, is it not? In revenue, total GRT, 44 million?
No, it's 42.
42 million.
Yeah, it's at 42 million.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
I followed the discussion at the finance committee last month. And the discussion was that rather than going with the projections that the staff made for gross receipt tax receipts, which was based on year-to-date, annualized,
Right.
it was cut back well over $2 million on the fear that maybe GRT taxes won't be so great next year, which is always a possibility.
Right.
But now we have the numbers for the entire year, last year, and GRT receipts were up like 12%. And I'll remind you, of course, that, and I realize that things come up like an insurance bill you didn't expect. But of course, state law requires that you have to have set aside, what is it?
Well, and we've got a $1.4 million bill we got to make up going forward for ambulance service.
No, I understand. I understand also you proposing to raise the local GRT. To try to.
Yeah, we ain't got it done yet.
I understand that. Yeah. And I want to repeat that we understand that balancing a city budget is never easy. It's our responsibility. to urge city council to prioritize essential services to city residents. And I know that everybody, it's not easy being a city council member, and you have lots of competing interests or demands on the city budget, but delivering essential services, investing in your workforce has to be the top priority. If we don't do that, we're shortchanging City of Roswell residents. We're not going to be able to maintain skilled workers. You're going to keep losing skilled workers. You're going to keep going someplace else. So I would just like to urge you, please keep that uppermost in your mind as you finalize the final budget. Thank you so much.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Yes.
Rita Kendor, Harper, very narrow on stripe, Chicago Cubs mailbox, Mark Road. I think I will go talk to Tony Franco regarding permit fees and the nasty rumor I heard about the UFO permit fees. So I will do that, and I will talk to Mike Mackey so he can maybe join me in that. And then I will be back in touch. Thank you.
Anybody else on the line?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
was speaking to the budget. I just think that it's fair that we at least discuss or acknowledge that we've seen some crumbling way of how we view a preliminary budget from maybe the correct way that we need to be viewing a preliminary budget. A preliminary budget is not just getting something together to send to DFA, and then we've got our main budget that we put together at a month later. The preliminary budget has to be what the council adopts as a final budget. Only things that are capable of really, to my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but my understanding from years past is that you have to have a cash balance and a beginning cash start is really the numbers that you're changing between your preliminary budget and your final budget. It's not that you can make a preliminary budget and then all of a sudden change and decide, well, we're going to give this much more to this department, take this much away from that department. We're going to give this raises and do away with that. Really, we have the ability to change two things. If I'm wrong, I'd like someone to please correct me in that. That's my understanding. That's why I was so staunch and so outspoken on the preliminary budget, because the preliminary budget is so critical to get right the first time. So I'm very concerned as we move into this consideration for a final budget. I really don't know what happens with DFA if we end up not adopting a resolution to approve a final budget. So those are just things that we need to keep in mind. Thank you.
Can I speak to this, Mr. Chairman? I agree with Councilman Perry that, your preliminary budget is very, very important, but I think there seems to be some misconception in the city that you can only tinker with the final budget, you can only tinker with the preliminary budget, like on the cash balances. It's not my understanding. I mean, I'm not an expert in New Mexico law, but my understanding is the final budget has to be approved by DFA. That's true. But in our view,
We sent an email out, I think.
Yeah.
They just has it there in front of her.
This is a letter from the budget analyst at DFA, and she says in here, so what is next? The only object code available to make budgeted changes in the final budget stage is the beginning cash. FY24 beginning cash can be split between cash and investments within the same fund. The ending cash balance amount from the fourth quarter must reconcile to the 24 beginning cash for each fund, and that's all we're allowed to change.
I can only say I've read state law and state regulations, and it says that the final budget has to be approved by DFA. It can be changed. It's our view.
So we're not even going to open up any lines for us to change other than the cash balances, is what this is telling us. Yeah, this was sent out to.
I mean, I got it. I'm just checking. Did you say it?
Yeah, I see. Councilor Perry, did you see that as well?
I have not made that full reading yet, but I do appreciate that information. That goes to what I understand. Do we know who has taken Donnie Quintana's place at this point? Is there a permanent? Has there been a permanent appointment, or is it temporary?
It is a temporary, and it's one of the other budget analysts. Her name is Cordelia Stathis. And I asked her about a late submission and a budget submission with no resolution. And she told me a late or non-submission will place your entity in non-compliant status, which will also mean that all grant or state funding will be held until a budget is submitted.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, that's the way that I understand it to be, and it's just very concerning. We've got a lot of things, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, that we've got to consider and get right. But I think that as we look at this final budget, I think that there needs to be some strong conversations on will there be any amendments to what we're going to be, if it even passes, is there going to be considerations for amendments? Because I think that our fourth quarter, I think that our last 12th that we just saw with GRT is showing strong, and I'm in agreement with the gentleman who just spoke that I think that we have room to make some considerations. So I just think that we need to at least have those discussions when that time comes. Thank you.
Councilor Perry, I don't disagree with a lot of this, but I hope we don't get to council and we don't come up with a budget resolution, because that will jeopardize this city more than you will ever even understand. That this budget, according to DFA, the only thing we can adjust is the beginning and ending cash balances. And
okay,
that's what they say. That's what they say. And if we do not pass a budget resolution and that we get grants or even loan proposals stopped, heaven help the citizens of this community, and shame on us for not doing our job. It doesn't mean that we can't come back at a later date and see where we're at and address the needs of the employees. This is a budget that you can always make mid-year adjustments. And we can talk about that and we can look at that. We have been handed a mess. And I didn't create it. And you know, Councilor Perry, we talked about this the other day, that we're having to pay for the sins of others. And we're all in this group together, but I'm not paying for the sins of others anymore. We're going to do things going forward, and we're going to do them properly, and we're going to do them financially sound. And that's all I've done for almost 50 years of my career. And I'm not going to stop doing it, and that's why I ran for that and took a seat on this city council for that. It's not to shame the employees of this city. We have some very excellent employees in this city who come to work every day, put their heart into what they do. And it's not because we're shaming them by a 1%. That's not what this is about. This is putting this city on sound financial footing. And I would hope, Councilor Perry, that when we have council meeting next week, that we do approve a budget and we don't turn this over to the hands of the state. And that we do the right things for the citizens of this community.
Councilor
Helder, go on record right now that I'm going to follow what DFA says. And this is not against any employee. I'm following what DFA has said. This is what you're allowed to do. So,
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I agree with what Councilman Hildebrand just stated. I'm not in a position to argue with your experts on what DFA does or does not allow. I'm hearing Councilor Hildebrand say that there is a way this year to fix this for faith with city workers. I'm just pleading with you to find that way, whatever way that is. Because the preliminary budget, adopted as a final budget, goes through for the rest of the year. City workers are going to continue losing faith in the council and the city. We need none of us. Just pleading with you to find a way.
I'm saying we can find a way, but we got to have some time to find a way. All we need is a misstep in the revenue side. And then what do? You lay off city. We don't want to do that. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to live in a budget that keeps city employees employed and not a budget that says, oh, well, now our receipts are down. What do? Cut services? No, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to have something sound and financial, and if we can participate and give more, that's what we'll look at.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I can just address a couple of things that Councilor Hildebrand has brought up. I just surely hope that that we go into that looking at it as you said, as an us and not a you, because we keep talking about the sins of our brothers, and I've bit my tongue and refrained quite a bit because, you know, as the Bible says, a soft answer turns away wrath, grievous words stir up anger. And just words like that just do not help us move forward. But so I refrain quite a bit on things like that. But I have to say that, you know, we wouldn't, in my opinion, be in this mess of me feeling strong-armed into having to vote for a final budget if we would have worked together on the preliminary budget. I feel like we had a preliminary budget that was strong-armed and pushed, and that was pushed through. And there was not any opportunity for discussion, for negotiation, and there was no time for that. Everything, the way that things have been done, as far as allowing staff and allowing a city manager to put together a budget to then be brought to us. Things are being done differently now, and I understand, and I refrain, and I submit to that if this is the new way to do it, that's the new way to do it. But there are consequences sometimes to that. And when a council is faced with the decision that we had with making the preliminary budget, now I'm being, told that, I just feel as if I'm being strong-armed, and I recognize, and I'm taking it very seriously about the potentials of what could happen with DFA. But if we would have worked together as a council to have fixed a preliminary budget, we wouldn't be in this predicament of having to deal with what we're about to have to deal with. So I would hope to think that by the same token of going on the record of going to support what DFA tells us we have to do, that there will be counselors at the meeting that will go on the record assuring that there will be changes made to be able to do the things that are necessary, in my opinion, for the employees. Now, I don't mean that in any unkind or any smart aleck or any forked tongue way. I feel that's necessary to say. I think there's still room to go to the table and not be talking about the sins of the brothers or talking about you or them or whoever, or that we can come to the table at this budget meeting and we can discuss these things and come to an assessment and agreement where we can all move forward. We can have an approved budget, but also have a vision of knowing where we're going past that meeting that can meet the needs that I believe are before us right now. Thank you.
Then we did it. City councilman. We followed, if my recollection is correct, and we got some people been around here a lot longer than I have, that we followed essentially the same procedure we did like the previous year. We had a finance committee meeting. One of our members amended the preliminary budget in that meeting. Did you not?
Yes.
And it was all there for everybody. Nothing was hidden. It was all there. And then we took that, the city council, had a special meeting, and then the final vote. If I remember serving correctly, I might be wrong, Everybody had another opportunity to look at it. Is that not right? Everybody in agreement?
Yep.
And then we had the final discussion before we passed it, and it passed 5-4. And there was some disgruntlement about that. And it was a preliminary budget. You don't need a supermajority of 6 to pass a preliminary budget. And so, Councilor Perry, you had, because you're a member of this committee, an opportunity to address your concerns then. You had your opportunity to bring light to anything you wanted to at the city council twice. And that's the same procedure we followed a year ago.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you totally. It is the same procedure that was done a year ago. And if you were, and with all due respect, I didn't agree with the way we did it last year either. So I'm in total agreement with you. And if you remember,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I brought up many concerns. It went on deaf ears, but I did bring up concerns. And it does disappoint me in the state of New Mexico that a preliminary budget only requires a simple majority of those present. That blows my mind, but it is, I agree with you, it is what it is, because there's no resolution or ordinance attached to it. It just takes a simple majority. But in all reality, that vote of a preliminary budget is probably the most critical decision we make in the entire year. The most critical of any decision as a council of what we have been duly elected to do. Probably the most critical, but it doesn't require 6 votes. So you're right. That's what it is. But the fear, and I think that that we need to think about is when you've got a vote of 5-4, you got to remember, well, if we're this divided, is there a way for us to negotiate and come together? And unfortunately, I feel like that fell on deaf ears because there was the ability of have 5 votes. But now we're in a predicament where you don't need 5 votes, you need 6. And now I'm being strong-armed to vote in favor, which I recognize. This is very critical. But I sure hope that the spirit that we come to the next meeting at is not just a strong arm that we have to have 6 votes, but it's both sides. And I hate to even say sides because I don't want to be on anybody's side except for the voters. That's all I want to do is just do the right thing. And I think you're the same way, Mr. Chairman and Councilor Hildebrand. I think we just come from different places, but if we'll come together with those ideas, I believe that we can unify. We can send a balanced a budget to DFA, but also allowing our employees and our other departments as well to recognize and know, okay, they see what we need. They see what is potentially possible, and we believe that they're going to follow through and we're going to get somewhere. That's all I'm saying. I sure hope that that's what we come to the meeting with. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Councilor, I agree with you on many of those items, but I did not tell Parks and Recs any number to put into their budget. That budget came to us directed by them. I did not tell the water department what numbers to put in. Those numbers came to us. We didn't put these numbers together. These departments put these numbers together. And we ratified or approved that based upon what these departments came to us and said, this is what our budget is for fiscal year 24. I sat in on meetings here, you as included, and we listened to their budget presentations. Now, they had many budget presentations I didn't attend to because I think each department came in and did some kind of presentation, but I didn't attend those. I think I only attended one of them. I don't know how many of those you attended, Councilor Perry.
Which meetings are you speaking of again? I'm sorry.
When these departments came in and made their budget presentations. Did you sit in on any of those meetings when they came in and did their budget presentation?
Those presentations, if you're the ones that, if I'm understanding what you're saying, I believe that those are presentations that need to be made to the city manager, who is the one who is in charge of bringing forth a potential budget to us. I do not think it's right for any elected official to be in any of those meetings, because then, in my opinion, those become political. That needs to be discussions between the manager and those departments. So therefore, I have never in my 12 years participated in any of those meetings.
Well, that's where I have a difference of opinion on you, because I think I attended just one. It's not, you're not there for input. You're there to listen and see what they're saying. And so you understand the final budget when it comes to us to approve. Because we're not sitting there driving them and telling them what to do and what not to do in their budget. I think the only one that we changed the budget on was with sanitation. We put in for 2 additional
Side loaders.
side loading trucks that they didn't put in. And we put those in there. That was a change that we made. But other than that, we did not change the water's wages. We didn't change anybody's wages. We didn't change anything, to my knowledge. That budget was presented to us. We had ample time to talk about it. We had special meetings. We had a lot of the city employees showed up and talked to us about it. And that was a point in time where these changes could have been talked about and tell us how you're going to, where that revenue is going to come from to support these changes. And I didn't hear a thing about that at all. That what is your solution? And besides raising wages, I didn't hear a solution from anyone at all. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll go back to listen to those YouTube videos, but I didn't hear another solution. Did you hear one, Councilor?
No, sir.
So we need to come together on this and have open dialogue about these issues instead of coming to council meeting and having a 6-hour council meeting where nothing gets resolved. These dialogues need to take place long before that. And as you know, we were in between city managers at that point in time as well. But we had assistant city manager, very capable, who did a great job in helping with this budget. We have great staff here who put this budget together. So I'm not strong arming you one bit. If you feel like I am, I'm not going to apologize, because I'm not strong arming you, Councilor Perry. I'm just being very open and very honest in how I feel about this. And if we can do something for the employees at midterm of the budget, then that's when we needed to look at it and assess it again, so that we know where we're at on our revenue stream. So I have nothing further to say. I'm ready for the meeting to be adjourned.
Meeting for Councilman Perry.
I'm just going to let that. We're not going to make any headway in just continuing to talk at this point. I'll just say again, I agree with Councilor Hildebrand that we do have to move forward. I have total agreement in that. I think we have different ideas on how this budget was put together. I don't think that I agree that staff put the budget together without council input in those meetings. I don't think I would agree with that statement, but I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I just don't agree with that. I just hope that we are able to come to the meeting and forget about whatever Dell Journey's time or Dennis Kentai's time or Sam LaGrone's time or Bill Owens' time. Look at what we have, and let's work together, and let's assure our employees, and let's assure that they're going to be taken care of. Let's assure our citizens that their services are going to be taken care of, And I think we have a win-win situation. And I agree. We can't give them everything that they desire or really need, but I think we can get somewhere. That's all I'm asking us to do. Let's come to that meeting with the ability to talk and know that we've got a plan to move forward with. I'm done. Thank you.
Councilor Perry, I am extremely upset about your insinuations because I did in most of those meetings. And in all fairness, and three of the people are in this room that were in those meetings. So I'm going to ask them a question. I want you to listen very carefully to their answer. Ms. Davis, during those meetings, did I use any political posturing or anything to get my way for those budget line items?
No, and I believe in the preliminary budget, I said that, we had a budget committee and we all had ideas of how it should go. And you're talking a lot of strong opinionated people. But I don't think anyone was, pushing that it be done this way. So.
Mr. Fuentes, you were in all those meetings, were you not?
Yes.
Did I ever use muscle or strong arm or whatever the words Mr. Perry just used during those meetings?
Mr. Chair, committee members, to be honest, the process was a little bit different than it had been in prior years. As Councilor Perry stated, in the past, staff was the ones who prepared the budget. And then we would present it to the chair and go over any questions and then the rest of the committee. This year was a little bit different because obviously there was a little bit more involvement in that. There was open discussion with you, Mr. Chair, and other staff people, and everybody had an opportunity to give input. And all information was taken into account.
Mr. Matthews, did I put any undue pressure on you or, and you've already heard from these other two, getting my way, using my political clout to get something done during those meetings?
No, sir. And I will say that many of the final decisions, when we got to a point we had to make a decision, those decisions came from me. I was acting city manager at the time. I had to make a hard decision on personnel issues, what to cut, what to keep, what services we were going to expand, what services we were going to cut. And unfortunately, I was one in the seat that had to make those decisions at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you all for your honest assessment.
Mr. Chairman.
No, I'm not going to recognize you right now because I'm not through. You need to understand I was there to learn how this city operates and the budget process and how we get things done. And I learned a great deal during those meetings. And I didn't attend all of them. I missed several, one morning's worth that I didn't, because I had other things I had to attend to, personal matters. And so you be very careful, Counselor, about insinuating that there was political pressure put on anybody during any of those meetings, and there hadn't been any since. We all discussed it. It was very open. Nothing. I'm an open book. You ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. You may not like the answer you get, but it's going to be an honest answer. Now, you got anything else?
I sure do, Mr. Chairman. I would appreciate it if you would listen very carefully to what I say and not put words in my mouth. I never once said that I accused you of strong arming or unfavorably putting political pressure on anyone. You used that terminology, Mr. Chair, and shame on you for doing that. I said I do not want to be strong-armed. Excuse me?
I'm leaving. I've had enough of this.
I'm sorry. I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish. I said that I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish. I said that I did not want to feel like, well, Mr. Chairman.
Turn him off. No, we're done. I lost
Shame
my
on
quorum.
you.
He left.
Shame on
He
you.
left.
Shame on you.